morning, Malacañang Press Corps. Welcome sa Mindanao Hour, Bangon Marawi, with Presidential Spokesperson Ernesto Abella.
Good morning. We'll now pass over the mic for...
Thank you very much, sir. Good morning, Malacañang Press Corps. Good morning, everyone. For our update for today, the 10th of September, we are on, I think, the 116th day, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just check that. No, 112th day of the fighting in Marawi. And we have the following information for you as our updates. Number of enemies killed, 655. Civilians rescued remain the same at 1,728. And so with the number of civilians that have been killed because of terrorist atrocities, they remain at 45. Recovered firearms increased to 685. Buildings cleared recently, 18 or 23, if I should say, and then the other day we cleared about 18. For members of the armed forces or our forces who have been killed in action, they remain at 145. For the donations that have come from the private sector, particularly for Marawi casualties, they remain at 38,124,573 and 23 centavos. For the Marawi IDPs, they remain at less than a million at 989,515 and 21 centavos. And this data was as of last Friday before the close of banking hours. We will get our next update at the end of the day today for the status of these funds. For updates regarding the implementation of martial law before I proceed to the operations in Marawi, current operations in the islands of Sulu, Basilan, and Tawi-Tawi are ongoing and they have not stopped. Particular focus that are the subject of our troops' attention at the moment is the continuing rescue operations for the remaining kidnapped victims held by the kidnap for ransom group Abu Sayyaf in the area, particularly in Jolo and Tawi-Tawi. Also, recently, a local, the son of a Zamboanga del Norte mayor, if I'm not mistaken, was abducted. And we believe they are within the same area of Western Mindanao Command, and an operation to effect the rescue of this individual has also been done. For Marawi operations, we would like to express the appreciation of the armed forces to the members of the MILF who have continuously been very strong about their commitment to end the operations of Daesh-inspired groups within and around their areas of operation, particularly in the South Cotabato, Maguindanao area. The BIFF in particular has been the forces here supportive of the Daesh and is the subject of these operations. Their commitment, in the words of the chairman, Mr. Iqbal, has been to work relentlessly to finish the ISIS or the Daesh-inspired group in their area that have been polluting the minds of their fellow Muslims and bringing them out of the wrong path or showing them the wrong path of the Islamic faith. So they remain committed to this, and you are all aware that they have issued a fatwa and their forces are deployed to effect all of this commitment to the armed forces and to the Republic. For Marawi operations, our operations remain relentless. They are continuing. And by the number of buildings that I have reported a while ago, we are expediting and speeding up our pace of clearing the buildings surrounding these areas where the enemy continues to remain holed up. Forgive us because we're not at the liberty yet to discuss particulars of the operation, but we can assure you that the commitment of our ground commanders and our troops is at an all-time high, and they would like to finish this fight at the soonest possible. The most significant, although for our reporting today or this morning, is that the bridge in the area of Mangolo has been completely secured and is now open for traffic for our troops, troop resupply, and the entry and exit of all our forces who are connected or engaged in the main battle area. There only remains one more particular area of concern, or one bridge that will have to be operated on. And this is the subject of our operations in the next few days. So that is all for now, and I would like to turn the floor to Secretary Abella for the other announcements for today.
For Task Force Bangon Marawi updates, on the continued interventions in business and livelihood, IDPs were provided with short courses on baking, processed food production, and dressmaking. Around 775 slots were offered in various skills training completed last week. IDPs who intended to continue with their businesses were given raw materials and were provided with the opportunity to showcase their products in the Kahimunan Trade Fair in Cagayan de Oro and the Go Negosyo Center in Iligan through the provincial government of Lanao del Norte. Most of the products displayed were malongs produced from the 5,000 worth of starting kits provided by DTI for the IDPs. The TFBM Subcommittee on Business and Livelihood is working on the establishment of a little Padyan sa Iligan at Tiangue where the IDPs could sell their products, and negotiation is ongoing for the leasing of a lot where the Tiangue will be located. On 9/11 anniversary. Today, September 11, marks the 16th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks in New York City. The fight against global terrorism continues where nations have chosen to stand united against a common enemy, espousing bigotry, fanaticism, and anarchy. In the Philippines, the fight against a Daesh-inspired rebellion in the Islamic city of Marawi is in its last miles. To stop the spread of terrorist ideology, we're working as one nation, pouring resources in infrastructure development in Mindanao while pursuing peace talks with the Moro rebels and pushing for the creation of a Bangsamoro region within the sovereignty of the Republic. Let us continue to remain united in our concerted effort to defeat terrorism. Also, a bit more good news. More Filipinos allocate OFW remittances for investment. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, in its Consumer Expectations Survey, third quarter 2017, reported that overseas Filipino workers, OFW households, who are utilizing the remittances for investments increased to 8.5% for this third quarter, almost doubling last quarter's 4.4%. This means more OFWs are allotting their money for investments. Also, on the planned abolition of the PCGG, legislative action is needed to proceed with the planned merger between the Presidential Commission on Good Government PCGG and the Office of the Solicitor General. On Hurricane Irma, we're closely monitoring the condition of our kababayans that may be affected by Hurricane Irma. The Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C. has already advised that close to 200,000 members of the Filipino community in Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina to comply with the evacuation orders issued by authorities. Filipinos in North Carolina and Virginia have also been advised to take the necessary precautionary measures after both states were placed under a state of emergency. We assure our kababayans that our embassy and consular staff will be on standby in case of any need. On the taxi driver involved in the Arnaiz case, we look forward to Mr. Tomas Bagcal's cooperation with authorities as he willingly expressed during his press conference. The National Bureau of Investigation is now conducting a parallel probe in the Carl Angelo Arnaiz case, and Mr. Bagcal is vital in its speedy resolution. He is the one identified by the Caloocan police as the victim of the alleged robbery committed by the slain teenager. We expect the truth of the matter to be clarified and those responsible made accountable before the law. An announcement on the DAR's officer in charge, Department of Agrarian Reform. The Palace announces the designation of Undersecretary Rosalina L. Bistoyong as officer in charge of the Department of Agrarian Reform per instruction of the government. The order took effect on September 8, the day the Executive Secretary signed the memorandum. OIC Bistoyong's designation will ensure the continuous delivery of public service. We're open to a few questions.
MPC questions first on Marawi. Bangon Marawi. Question? Joseph? Sige.
Sir, spokes in general, may mention po kayo na last miles, dun sa statement niyo sa 9/11, you mentioned in passing that our fight is in the last mile. So what do we exactly mean by that?
Well, as has been previously announced, we're entering the last and final stages of our fight in Marawi. That is being mentioned because the remaining areas where the rebels are holed up are getting smaller and smaller by the day. And as we clear more buildings, we deny them the opportunity to retake additional facilities or installations where they can hide. So they're actually concentrated on only a few. Ang last report na nanggaling po sa ground commander natin ay humigit kumulang na hindi naaabot ng 400 yung buildings na kailangang i-clear. So ngayon, sa number of buildings na na-clear natin ng mga nakarang araw, siguro mga more or less mga 300 some plus na lang ito, no? 320 kung susumahin natin lahat ng mga na-clear. And we're being very careful that pagka-clear ng isang building, hindi na ito mababalikan dahil tatauhan na at babantayan na ng ating mga hold-on forces. So, itong lugar na kanilang pag-iikutan, humigit kumulang 1/4 of a kilometer grid square or less ang siyang lugar na lamang na kanilang pinagtataguan. And unfortunately for us, unfortunately for them, in that small area remains among the strongest buildings, yung mga malalaki at makakapal na building. So yun ang nagiging challenge natin ngayon. So the fight has been in close quarter combat or close quarter battle. Malapitan na. Our clearing is going from room to room in every building. The challenges we continue to face remain the same because of the continued existence of booby traps that are being laid around. And this is the challenge that we are facing and addressing.
So are there any negotiations for the hostages ongoing now?
No, there is no negotiation whatsoever. Whatever news came out regarding the confirmation of the President regarding Solitario's participation were done previously, itong mga nakaraang linggo. But now, to date, we have closed this door because we don't negotiate with terrorists.
Kailan, sir, yung pinakahuling attempt to negotiate?
I am not exactly sure when that date is, but there was an attempt by Mr. Solitario to act as a go-between. But the condition they were asking for is to let go of the rebels. So many lives have already been lost. They have been responsible for so much damage. Pagbibigyan niyo pa bang makatakas yan? Di parang cancer yan na pinabayaan lang natin na magpatuloy. So hindi po natin pinayagan yan. At nagkaroon ng usapan po na mariing pinagbawal ng ating Pangulo na may makatakas pa na isa dyan sa ating mga kinakaharap.
Thank you, sir.
MPC questions? TV5?
Patricia Manguni po from TV5. General, sabi po ni Secretary Lorenzana last week sa Senate, by the end of September, matatapos na po yung Marawi siege. Can you verify this also, sir?
The continuing million peso question about when this is going to end. We have deliberately not been saying exactly when because we ourselves cannot set it. Dahil as the days continue, new challenges will come up, but we're doing our best to expedite it. That's why from 96,000 thousand barangays, if I'm not mistaken, or 96 barangays previously, we were down to about 5 to 6 about more than a month ago. Tapos ngayon, we're down to about 1.5 barangay na lang na natitira. So we are doing our best to confine them to a certain locality and certain area where we can make the final push.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Lanesca? Microphone.
Sir, about MILF and in relation to the Bangsamoro Basic Law, have you found, for spokesperson Abella, have you found an author for the proposed law in the House po? May author na?
As of this date, I'm not aware. As of this hour, but I can find out by this afternoon. Okay.
Sir, is the palace having a hard time looking for someone to sponsor the bill?
It should be with the legislative.
Sir, still about the Bangsamoro law, would you think it is more practical to pursue this first before charter change? Since the president has been pushing for charter change to improve the lives of the people, especially in Mindanao, where he is from.
It is a priority. The BBL is a priority. It's a very, very high priority. It's not a question of which is which, but it definitely has a very high priority.
So, which will come first?
That
BBL or charter
That I
change?
cannot assure you. It all depends on the events as they unfold.
Okay, questions? Other issue? Joseph Morong or Inandulo?
To spokesperson Abella,
Yes,
sir,
ma'am.
is there any update from the president on the supposed bank records that he plans to release relating to supposed accounts of Senator Trillanes?
Regarding the bank records, as of now, no. We don't have any updates.
When Senator Trillanes came out with the alleged bank records of the president criticized him for failing to back up his claims. How does the president intend to be different in that way? Can we expect him to come out maybe with verified bank records?
From how I understand and know the president, he would come out with something very substantial. Exactly what I cannot say, but I know he speaks he knows whereof he speaks.
So he won't pull Senator Trillanes, for example, who up to this day have not been able to produce any verified bank records.
I'm sure he has a higher ground.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Questions, MPC? Lanesca?
Sir, good morning again. About Tomas Bagcal, the taxi driver.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, and the president saying that there are certain groups trying to sabotage his drug war. Is the president clearing the police over the killings with that statement?
He's not clearing the police by any means along. He's not in any way saying that directly, but he is certainly bringing in a new element regarding the drug war. Like for example, in his words, these sabotaje. In other words, there is another element regarding the matter.
So, sir, he is still committed to prosecute erring policemen.
Of course, he has not, like you said, this is not a license to commit crime. The campaign against the drug wars is not a license to commit crime.
Okay, questions, MPC? No more? Okay. Joseph?
Ms. P.
Good morning, sir. Sir, ano ang mensahe ng palasyo on the 100th birthday of former President Marcos?
I think he has already made an implicit statement by, by allowing for the holiday in that place.
Okay. Joseph?
Just an addendum, just as additional, there are protest rallies against the celebration of the birthday. Any comment on it?
I would say again that the President and the Palace exercises maximum tolerance for dissident opinions.
Okay.
Sir, yun pong sa House Bill, sa PCGG.
Yes.
Ano ba yan? House Bill 5233, it has the effect of abolishing the PCGG, no?
Conflating, I think, both into compressing it into the office.
Absorbing the PCGG into OSG. Of
Yes.
course, the Palace wants this.
Come again?
The Palace wants this. As this is in line with what the President has been toying with as an idea to abolish the PCGG.
I think it would be more in terms of the right sizing.
Right sizing. How do you think this will benefit the Marcoses, if at all?
At this stage, I cannot say if it will benefit them or not.
Okay.
Sir?
Yes.
Pakipass yung microphone. Yeah.
Sir, Lay Baguio from Brigada News FM.
Yes.
Kunin ko lang po yung Palace reaction sa issue po ni Mr. Bagkal at yung parang tila agawan po ng simbahan at ng DOJ kung sino po yung dapat magkustudiya sa witness.
Wala po tayong komentaryo patungkol dyan. We know, at this stage, we don't have any formal statement regarding that matter.
Okay. Ace Romero.
Yusek, what did the President mean when he said that he's going to destroy Senator Antonio Trillanes?
You know, the President is a very, what do you call it? Is a very firm and forceful speaker. And simply means to say that he wants to put a stop to these apparently wanton comments. And in other words, he wants to make sure. He wants to make sure that things do not become sheer reckless accusations. Simple as that.
So what is there to destroy if that's the case?
The accusations.
The accusations,
Yeah.
not the person.
Of course not.
Because he issued a similar threat before against Senator De Lima, and we know where Senator De Lima is right now.
But the person is not destroyed. You know.
I don't know. But, okay, does that mean that we are expecting the President to relay information that could lead to the filing of charges against?
Well, simply that whatever it is, that he will want a stop to this apparently wanton accusations that are being recklessly cast around.
But do we expect him to relay information that could lead to prosecution or filing of cases, just like what happened to Senator De Lima?
He may come up with substantial evidence that will effectively put a stop to these things.
Thank you, Yusek.
Okay. Last question. Danesca, to be followed by Joseph. Last question.
Sir, last on my part po. Sir, morning. About Speaker Alvarez proposing a 1,000 peso budget for the Commission on Human Rights, is the Palace supportive of this initiative by the Speaker, considering the President's earlier statements against the CHR po, and even its abolition?
We'll have to refer that to the office of the OES, and we can find what the President's formal position is.
Okay.
Sir, doon na lang kay you said last week, no, that malignant elements are out to sabotage the drug war of the President. Who will these malignant elements be?
They'll have to be investigated.
But of course, you may have an idea. This is not just a.
In other words, these are not benign forces. You know.
I think I get what the malignant term is.
Okay.
But does this have any basis in fact or?
Well, the President himself has said that it's being sabotaged. It cannot just be a figment of his imagination. I'm sure there are certain personalities out there who are actively engaged in who apparently are actively engaged in discrediting the president's campaign.
Yeah, in that same statement, sir, you said that the palace said that any killings of teens should be viewed with suspicion, no?
Not just any. For one, I said any death, a single death, is regrettable already.
Correct.
But especially these deaths of teenagers should be seen with the second eye. I mean, what's happening there? What really is happening in there?
Given, sir, the testimony of Mr. Bagkal saying that, number one, the affidavits are forged, the scenario that the police was trying to build up seems staged, how do you think does that affect your statement that there are certain elements sabotaging the anti-drug war?
Look, this is better subjected to the proper investigation. But at this stage, we cannot speculate about whether there are saboteurs or non-saboteurs regarding especially affecting the deaths of young people. But it should be subjected to proper investigation. However, the president himself has introduced that idea, that insight, that it seems that at this stage there are probably those who are involved in making sure that his campaign is actually discredited.
In this particular case with Carl, it doesn't seem to be coming from the outside. It is from the government. I mean, if it's the police forging testimonies of the driver.
In which case, like I said, it should be subjected to proper and rigorous investigation just to determine what really is the actual thing happening there.
Should the NBI take hold of the witnesses?
I think there's a parallel investigation.
Should the NBI, sir, take hold of the witnesses? Because there have been attempts by the VACC and the NBI.
I cannot speculate on that. I cannot give you an answer on that.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. Last question na. Danesca, you have a question?
Sir, yung sa CHR po, kasi the executive proposed 651 million for next year, for 2018. So, magbabago yung proposal ng executive considering Speaker Alvarez wants it reduced to 1,000 pesos?
We'll just have to leave it to the speaker to make a decision on that.
Sir, you can't be categorical if you're supportive of the 1,000 peso for the CHR.
Well, that's his position. That's what he wants. So.
No stopping him.
Not that I know of.
Okay, thank you. MPC, wala na question? Okay, thank you, Presidential Spokesperson.
I'll just add.
Okay, sir.
An additional request from Joint Task Force Bangon Marawi. We're happy to inform you that the arrival of heavy equipment to be used by Task Force Bangon Marawi for its initial groundwork for the recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction of Marawi from the armed forces sides. Engineering units are already there, and we will be hauling a little bit more equipment to help and work with the local public works department to effect all of this needed movement on the ground or improvement of the ground. We already started doing the relocation area. Halos tapos na po yan, yung pagtatayo na lang ng bahay. Pero yung sa pag-clear, pag natapos na po ang bakbakan sa loob ng Marawi, yun po ang pagtutuunan ng pansin. Kaya kung napansin nyo, yung mga ibang dumating doon ng mga ibang heavy equipment, medyo parang armorized. May harang yung mga tabi-tabi. Baka sa pag-clear, mayroon pang mga hindi pumuputok na mga bomba. Pagka binabulldozer, maaaring sumabog ito. Kaya dapat protektahan yung mga engineers natin. Ganon din po yung patuloy na pagdating ng mga relief goods na hino-haul ng ating Philippine Navy through BRP Davao del Sur. So they're all there, and this will continue. And we'll continue to provide the much-needed assistance of our evacuees who are in need of our help. The last item is on the aspect of the CPP-NPA. We call on the public to please be vigilant and to work with our forces on the ground, because in 2 instances in the past few days, there were again a series of burning of heavy equipment, which is very much anti-people and anti-development. The people who are supposed to benefit from the infrastructure projects that are being put up by these companies will now be delayed. So they will not benefit from it until it is finished. Kaya ang nangyayari, imbis na mabilis yung mga pagtatapos ng mga proyekto na ginagawa ng gobyerno sa build projects nito sa Mindanao, mga farm-to-market roads, etc., bumabagal lalo at hindi nakikinabang ang taong bayan. Kaya ang aming po pakiusap, magi po tayong mapagmasid sa kapaligiran at makipag-ugnayan po tayo sa pulis at sa kasundalo para mabantayan natin yung pagsalakay ng mga patuloy na nagiging bandidong mga grupong ito dahil sa kanilang pangingikil. Maraming salamat po.
Okay, thank you, AFP Spokesperson Brigadier General Restituto Padilla. Thank you, Presidential Spokesperson Ernesto Abella. Thank you, Malacañang Press Corps. Back to our main studio sa Radyo Pilipinas and PTV.
Can I start? Good afternoon to our DTI beat reporters. A warm welcome to all of you. After pondering on the achievements and outcomes of the 49th ASEAN Economic Ministers meeting and related meetings from a regional perspective, we are gathered here to appreciate how this translates in the Philippine context. So we have, of course, DTI Secretary Ramon M. Lopez, who also chairs the ASEAN Economic Ministers meeting and related meetings, and of course, our AEM Philippine lead, Undersecretary Ceferino Rodolfo. To give DTI's official statement, ladies and gentlemen, we give you DTI Secretary Ramon M. Lopez. Sir.
Na tayo kasi nag-opening na ako kanina. But siguro just to reiterate and acknowledge also the hard work of the TNC led by ASEAN Robeniol yan, and her team. So sila yung nagtrabaho ng marami dito sa RCEP discussion. As you know, as mentioned, it's not an easy agreement or negotiation. In fact, ongoing pa. But malino dito, there is a convergence at least on some expectations, landing zones, convergence also as to the need to really enhance yung trade investment among participating countries. So as long as yung shared objectives nandun, we believe that everybody's trying to really work out advancement in the talks. And of course, may mga kina-qualify nga lang ng mga parameters. Kaya nga, to guide everyone, para pare-pareho tayo ng expectations. Or the participating RCEP countries. Actually, ang original intention ko sanang i-relay, since unless may tanong pa kayong iba doon, pero limitado na rin yung ating pwedeng i-reveal when it comes to the RCEP. Ang gusto ko sanang sabihin, yung mga ibang balita natin, probably on the bilaterals. Kasi, as you know, kaya nga sabi ko nga, CR lang ang pahinga. Kasi in between AEM meetings na every hour, and so many, as you know, so many dialogue partners, and plus the AEM itself, plus the RCEP. In between, may mga bilaterals din tayo. Na yun naman, ibig sabihin Philippines with each of the countries na nakipag-usap sa atin. And so before I go into each one, baka si Yusek Perry may have some statements. Okay. ASEAN, you want to say a few words on how difficult it is to negotiate with baka tanungin ka pa ng ng parameters ng key elements. Sige. So on the different countries, siguro yung una nating na bilateral is Malaysia. So siguro kwento na rin namin sa Malaysia, maganda, they've relayed to us that in fact, and they've invited Philippines to participate in the internship program that they are doing. So to improve yung people-to-people interaction, capacity development, in other words, mga training and actual internship of, let's say, Filipinos in Malaysian companies or possibly Malaysians also in Filipino companies. The idea is to have an internship program within ASEAN. This can be expanded outside Malaysia and Philippines, wherein interns can really be part of companies operating in ASEAN. So that's a good development because, as you know, pag intern ka, chances are baka pwede ka ring ma-hire na eventually dun sa mga companies that are participating. Second item we discussed with Malaysia is feasibility, of course, of pursuing joint venture in oil palm plantation here in the Philippines. We'd like to pursue discussions therein. As you know, when the President visited together with the Philippine delegation, yung presidential visit sa Malaysia, may mga interest na gustong mag joint venture dito, mag-operate dito. And I remember that it may not be the 900,000 hectares that are being discussed before, but we can start with even with 200 to 300,000 hectares. That can be, well, that has a potential for oil palm and eventually processing it into palm oil. So yun yung isang area na diniscuss nila. Of course, their willingness also to help us in the capacity building on halal products, enhancing yung halal capability ng Philippines. We also are looking into better arrangement siguro. We appreciate kasi yung efforts ng mga Malaysian companies like Maybank, AirAsia to expand their operation in the Philippines. As you know, AirAsia is wanting to operate in more cities in the country, even what we can call yung low volume areas. They're studying feasibility of putting a flight, yung mga missionary areas. A few weeks ago, you remember they also launched the KL Davao, 99 pesos, no? I think it will start sometime December. There are also meron ding isang request that we are studying, and I think it might be positive in the sense na yung request to waive the 1,600 pesos what do you call that travel tax. Kasi kahit 1,600 yon, it matters a lot for a budget airline, and the low fee, low ticket prices. So malaking bagay yung 1,000. Kung ma-waive yon, the idea there is, and there were feasibility studies made already, may present sila, that showed the multiplier effect na Because if you exempt that, obviously they will, and then they will put a flight in there. Yung multiplier effect in terms of more people will be traveling because of the low fare, tax exempt, and yung revenue that would be forgone actually can easily be recovered by the amount of business that will be generated in terms of more tourists, the duty-free sales, tourism revenues in resorts, the gifts and souvenirs industry, so on and so forth. No, mas lalakas yung business multiplier effect. So that's the data that they've shown. And they've done that. They showed that they've done that in Bitong, is it Bitong or Bandung? Ay, ano nga ba yung ano nila? What? I think is there Bandung, Indonesia? Oh, yon, Bandung yata yon, and Kota Kinabalu, where they did where there is that incentive, yung mga tax exempt or waiving of taxes, but definitely the tourism really grew in that area, and much more revenues na hindi na achieved before are now being realized. So they've shown us the study on that one, so we'll take it up with the agencies like I think TIEZA, and so para mapag-aralan din kung I think para sa atin might be worthwhile looking into it, no, waiving it and then make ang laki ng kapalit ng yung multiplier effects sa revenues then that will be generated from a big jump in tourism. So yung Malaysia, yun yung mga diniscuss. Sige, you Secretary would like to add.
Thank you, sir. It was also reported by the Malaysian Minister to SecMon that about the launching of the Philippines-Malaysia Business Council. So this really highlights the vote of confidence of Malaysian investors in the country. Yun, sir.
Yun yung the Maybank. And ito na nga yung Air Asia thing, kasama na yon. Sige. So siguro I'll tackle na rin the next muna, and then we can have a question for the two, and then we'll tackle the next two again. No? The other country siguro that we can also present on would be our meeting with Japan. I don't know kung na-share na ni Yusek Perito yung Japan's inputs over sa formulation of industry vision. May binigay silang paper sa atin as their sort of contribution in helping us plan for yung industrial development. As you may know, yung ating comprehensive national industrialization strategy, we're trying to reformulate it in a sense na adding more innovation in it. In fact, we're now calling it inclusive innovation led industrial strategy. I. Inclusive Innovation Led Industrial Strategy. So ICUBE-S na. So parang yung Japan din, infrastructure, inclusive innovation. So, but having said that, we try to inject innovation, and see Japan has some inputs on. They officially submit I think a paper and a study as their contribution to our industrial development strategy. And then what else? They're doing a lot of programs actually as it supports SMEs, yung mga e-commerce, SME, training, capacity building, and ano pa pero?
Yung mga industrial HRD, sir, nila.
Yeah.
Particularly for the important sectors for both of us, including dun sa electronics, tapos sir dun sa automotive.
Right.
Yung if I may just answer dun sa contribution nila dun sa vision, industrial vision. What's important here also is at the start of the process, si SecMon has emphasized to them that it has to have the element of yung walang iwanan. And that's why they translated it to, literally to, no one left.
No one will be left behind. The China strategy. Ang haba, no? Sa atin, walang iwanan. Mas madrama. Okay. Japan, isip ko pa kung ano pa. PIJEPA, in-initiate yung posibleng magkaroon ng discussion. So, Yusek Perry, ni-raise mo yan.
For the PIJEPA, the Philippines, first of all, we thank Japan for confirming the dates for the 6th PIJEPA Joint Committee meeting. So this will also be the opportunity for us to move forward on the general review of the PIJEPA, where Secretary Mon Lopez already flagged to Japan that our products of interest really as we review the PIJEPA would be on bananas, mangoes, and pineapples. These products that are very important to southern Philippines and very important for us to have greater market access, especially considering that Japan already has FTAs with some other countries that also produce the same products.
Related to bananas and pineapples, I'll jump now to the third country. And in our discussion with Australia, we also push for the same product, siguro inclusion or siguro greater access, market access to Australia, pushing for the bananas. Sinabi lang nila na, in fact, Philippines nga lang daw talaga yung nagtutulak na makapasok yung bananas. Kasi meron silang proseso, IRA, what's that? IRA. Import risk assessment. Yan. That sabi nila, we just have to go through that process and they can consider it. It's just that banana is an industry that they are strong on that particular industry in terms of the supply. They have a lot of bananas and prices are so competitive. So kahit makapasa tayo sa RA, challenge din yata to be able to compete at the prices. So, but at any rate, we registered our desire really to bring our yung mga banana products doon, and also even pineapple. No? We also cited the recent confidence that Australian companies put in the President Duterte's administration through the recent investment that was placed in DC, the Lopez company. Yung Macquarie, I think it's a huge investment by Macquarie. We also updated them. They asked also, kamusta daw yung ating mga review ng equity restriction. So we updated them with our current exercise, especially the mood of economic managers to really work on shortening further the FINL, the negative list, to the extent possible. We updated them on the public service or act, no, amendment. So yung bill ngayon that will liberalize a lot of public utilities, for example, so that it can liberalize yung equity restriction. So yun yung mga interest nila, shortening FINL. But the confidence is there. And gusto talagang magpasok, and they look at the robust growth rate ng Philippine economy, the demographic dividend, and the GSP privileges that we enjoy with the US and EU. So they see these are all opportunities to really invest here, plus the very business-friendly environment adopted by government. Siguro I'll stop there. Baka may tanong na kayo muna dun sa... So we continue. Ano pa? New Zealand, let me see. Wait, siguro sa New Zealand, New Zealand is really the ease of doing. Sorry? Pupunta tayo ron. Meron din. So sa New Zealand, yung support nila sa ease of doing business, and of course yun yung concern din nila na sana ma-improve yun. So as you know, meron tayong we have ongoing efforts with the New Zealand government, at least working on how we can further shorten and improve yung starting a business profile para mag-improve din yung ranking natin. Hopefully nga yung vision natin at top 20 by 2020, they reiterated their willingness to support us in conducting workshops, bring in, of course, experts on how we can really improve yung process, shorten further yung mga streamlining the procedure, and eventually automating yung procedures starting a business. U.S. It's more of thanking the USTR, led by Barbara Weissel, on the inclusion of travel goods in the GSP. Pinag-usapan din yung strengthening yung bilateral commercial ties as part of the TIFA. And siguro yung kinwento rin namin sana madagdagan pa, ma-enhance pa uli yung GSP inclusion. Hopefully we can include footwear. So after the travel goods, yun naman ang anuhin natin, we'll try to work on the footwear goods that can have better access to the US market. Of course, yon, desire natin yon, hindi ibig sabihin okay na sa kanila. No? Sige. Formal submission. Ano pa, pag-uusapan pa namin bago to. Baka singilin mo na ako next week, wala pa to. So, kung tatanong yan, within the year, mag-submit, no? Pero, siyempre, kausapin pa yung industry and yung mga formalities, yung formal submissions.
Umaabot, sir, ng mga 15 yung footwear. If you would remember, really, garments saka footwear are among the most protected in the U.S. market, including previously, sir, di ba, yung travel goods. Now, based on the Secretary's instructions for the DTI to work with the industry toward the inclusion of the footwear, yung formal process, kasi if you would remember the process that we've undertaken for travel goods, normally yan, di ba, magkakaroon ka ng refinancing act for the GSP. The GSP, yung financing act for the GSP will be expiring this December. So that will be the opportunity to include their authorization for the U.S. President to also include footwear as among the items that will be eligible for the GSP. Tapos pagkatapos nun, pag na-include yon, then yung labanan na namang susunod would be the issuance of an executive order from the President of the U.S. to include that. So, yun po. Medyo siguro, as the Secretary mentioned, gusto natin dito, yung unang labanan, masama siya doon sa Refinancing Act. At susunod yung EO. We have not really looked at it, but it's, sorry, we don't have the numbers right now, but it's one of the more important sectors dun sa US. Ang maganda kasi dito, it's not just the Philippines which has been advocating this, but also the US buyers, noting that in the US, there's really not much production activity already going for the footwear. What has also been emphasized, if you would remember, si Secmon was just in the US a few weeks ago, the other week, and he had discussions with the the apparel, tsaka mga textile. Sir.
Apparel and American Apparel and Footwear Association, AFA, and that's the group also that worked with us in getting in really working towards the inclusion of travel goods. And part of that meeting, we also agreed to start working on the footwear inclusion. So. Bakit ano?
Ba't mataas yung ng footwear, sir? Tsaka, well, these are traditionally really, pag pinag-usapan natin yung GSP, wala talaga traditionally garments, footwear, textile. Pero since nag-migrate na nga yung production from the US to the other countries, so mas nakikita natin there's an opportunity for us to lower the tariffs through the GSP. Sir, kwento.
Siguro, so I'll put it in a positive note na supportive naman ang US to some of the yung mga proposals ng Philippines to just like what happened in the travel goods. As their way also, actually what has in that meeting, what happened also, I just mentioned this part, no. I can't mention the other parts kasi baka may political impact. But on the positive note, what they said that they now consider or putting more weight on helping the Philippines, which has long been a good ally, a long-standing trading partner, as well as yung bang we fought wars with the US, allies talaga, yung historical relationship. Parang may sentiment ngayon sa Amerika na giving more weight to that. And of course, conversely, medyo may mga tinitingnan din sila doon naman sa mga dati nilang mga hindi kaalay. So, may mga ganong rin, consideration. So, yun lang. Yun lang. Oh, yeah, of course. Good standing. Good standing. What do you mean with the USTR? Yeah, just to mention, I'll mention our part only. No, I won't comment on the other parts. Na at least yung sa Philippines na ally, talagang binibigyan din nila ng weight yung matagal ng relationship, partnership, and on many aspects, the long history of relationship with the US. They're putting more weight to that. Kaya siguro naging favorable din yung decision nila in including travel goods. Sa Japan? Sige, ikaw na.
Yung munan din sa US, just to add, it's public naman that the US is undertaking a trade deficit study with countries where it has a trade deficit of greater than $10 billion. And they're looking at the trade practices of these countries, kung meron bang unfair trade practices that have led to this deficit of the US. And they see on the Philippine side, the upside there is that on the Philippine side, they see a lot of potential for a balanced trade with the Philippines. We are a country that trades fairly. We treat our workers fairly, decently, and they value that, because for some countries, this may be part of the advantages that they get so that they can get into the U.S. market. If you would remember also, the Secretary and Secretary Bello signed very recently a joint department order for the certification of
For in garments.
yes sir, yung mga mag-export using preferential. So yun yung mga na-highlight during the Secretary's visit to the US. Kaya mas kita nila yung the Philippines as a good country to trade with. Yung sa PIJEPA naman, yung focus kasi of our negotiation with the PIJEPA dun sa general review will be on the agricultural, on our access for agricultural products, in particular the products which the Secretary has mentioned, so mangoes, bananas, and pineapples. Because over time, Japan has also signed FTAs with other countries, in particular Mexico and Peru, na nakakapag-export din of these products. Of course, by and large, we still dominate the Japanese market, but these countries, just by virtue of being able to negotiate more recently an FTA with Japan, mas maganda yung nakuha nilang tariff preference. So yun yung gusto nating makorek. Seasonal kasi yung tariff, meron tayong in-season tariff saka out-season tariff. I just don't remember the tariff levels kung ano yun. Sa Japan, sir. But it's also an emphasis which the Secretary made, hindi lang sa Australia kanina, but also with Korea.
I was about to add, I got reminded here na talking about, again, yung malalaking exports natin on banana, pineapple, and mangoes. We also push for those products for the acceptance of Korea, no, to have greater market access for these products, banana, mangoes, and pineapples. And sa Korea, they also noted that there is an ongoing process of SPS accreditation, yung sanitary, phytosanitary accreditation for durian, mangosteen, avocado, okra, no? And so yon. And then plus we added the banana, pineapple, mangoes. What else? Of course, we took note of Korea's interest to help us in the mold and dye center, similar to what they have in Korea. This is a center that helps SMEs and even the small mold and dye companies para magkaroon ng mga shared equipment. Ito yung, the mold and dye is the backbone of manufacturing. Yung mga gumagawa ng mga molde, no, sa mga packaging products, etc. Have we covered China? No, not yet. China is, as you know, we have a different kind of relationship that has really transformed into a very good one when it comes to trade and investment. We reminded ourselves of what we've just signed, I think late last year, on the 6-year development program. China's support, involvement in wanting to help in the infrastructure program of the Philippines, the Build. You know, si Chinese Commerce Minister MOFCOM, Minister Zhongshan, was also meeting with our infrastructure agency secretaries in this regard. No, they also they reiterated the call of President Xi Jinping to help balance the trade between Philippines and China. In fact, they mentioned that the Philippines should take advantage of, I guess, first in their history, in mounting an international import expo. Parang first time daw silang mount na talagang, instead of the usual export, dating pinopromote nila ngayon, they're trying to help countries na may deficit with them by promoting their imports from countries like Philippines. So it's quite the reverse, and it's really helping countries like us na makapag-export sa China. They're that open. And just like what I mentioned to you before, they're even willing to help us on the technical side of things, the standards, meeting standard specifications, or yung capacity building, training, para ma-enhance yung capability natin to export to China. So yon, may import, expo. So we reiterated to them yung further cooperation including the infrastructure, the manufacturing. So manufacturing, aircraft parts, bicycles, e-vehicles, iron and steel, shipbuilding, irradiation facilities, cross-border e-commerce, big data analytics, creative industries. Of course, the new development, I don't know if you captured yung previous report ko sa inyo na they reported that they also limited their production capacity on iron and steel, so that what happened then as tumaas na yung mga presyo ng mga iron and steel products nila and exports, because as you know, dati maraming nag-raise ng concern, no, na nagkaroon ng oversupply sa China, but I think they mentioned that they have become strict on meeting environmental standards, and they were really serious in ensuring na yung companies operating meet standards. So they've even, I think, closed down some factories, and therefore that limited now their production capacity, intentionally done, so that they can ensure better standards of products. So what happened, of course, then medyo na-curtail na yung supply from them. I've talked to some industry players also locally, tumaas na tuloy yung mga presyo ng kanilang mga iron and steel products. For example, yung mga billets na ini-import din natin, mataas na ngayon from China. But makita mo yung resolve nila, yung intention nila to really address environmental concerns, and so yun yung, and they want to ensure yung standards are met. We discuss also potentials in cooperation pagdating sa industrial parks, mga technology parks, because they have several hundreds of technology parks in China, sa laki ng China. So they're willing to cooperate, work with us in setting up industrial and technology parks in the Philippines. What else? As mentioned, we're thankful to China kasi isa sila sa country na really very cooperative as far as Philippines and also as far as the ASEAN is concerned. In terms of willingness nila to work within yung sinabi nating key elements. So, ano pa? Anything else on China? Part of the rebalancing na sinabi natin kanina, na they want to help balance our trade from trade deficit to hopefully a more balanced one. We've noted that the trade with them has started to go up. In other words, yung exports natin started to go up already in the first half. Na ba yung latest natin? First half, about 34% growth in exports, of our exports to China and Hong Kong. So it's a drastic improvement on our exports to China. Hopefully, if we continue to do that, I think they cited also our growth in exports is much higher than the growth in imports. And therefore, if we continue this momentum in a couple of years, hopefully we can bring back what we used to have, the trade balance with China. In other words, halos pareho dati ang export and imports natin with China. May balance tayo eh. Kaya lang it worsened in the last 5 years. On Russia, taking off from the very good visit ni President Duterte in Russia last May, kahit naputol siya because of the Marawi incident, itinutuloy yung their willingness to help us in several industries, pharmaceuticals, life science, maritime, engineering, disaster management, IP, even yung yung development ng mga remote villages. So parang mga I think mga programs or projects that can help in regional development. So they're willing to disease control also, disease control. So yun yung mga gusto nilang i-share sa ating technology. Not to mention, of course, our willingness then to enter or at least to look into how we can have maybe a cooperation in the fields of yung pag-supply ng mga military equipment, military and defense equipment, which Russia is recognized to be good suppliers of, and they've indicated supporting Philippines also in that regard. What else? We reminded them and that all our respective agencies, the agriculture and the agencies, are working on fulfilling yung $2.5 billion commitment of President Putin to buy agriculture products from the Philippines. In the same token, they've also, of course, looking at product complementation. Meron ding mga products of interest then for them to hopefully enter the Philippine market. No, I think this is something to do with mga meat products then. No, so yun yung mga pinag-aaralan ngayon ng respective agriculture departments natin. If you recall, you will recall also na Secretary Piñol during our May trip in Russia signed something also on MOU in agriculture cooperation. In the same way na maraming agency pumirma, energy, tourism, DTI, may mga pinirmahan tayong mga cooperation MOUs with Russian counterparts. Lastly, I think, India. Ito yung pahabol ng bilateral after the AEM. So we have a new, or they have a new Minister of Trade and Commerce, Suresh Prabhu, and ano rin siya, he's been a minister in different agencies, different departments. So mukhang ano siya, very adept din naman siya in international cooperation and very dynamic. We sense some willingness to work with us when it comes to furthering mga trade, industrial development, cooperation. For instance, pharmaceuticals, as you know, in medicines from India are cost competitive. They've highlighted na they've really gone a long way when it comes to getting FDA accreditation. Advanced na yung kanilang mga technologies sa pharmaceuticals from yung mga strict standards ng FDAs in US and EU. They are now innovators when it comes to new molecules. So their interest also is to enhance yung cooperation with the Philippines in this regard. They also welcome possible Philippine products in India to look into mga processed food. They highlighted the strength of Philippines on processed food, especially processed fruits and vegetables. No? Lastly, in the area of BPOs, as you know, they're also a big BPO provider, service provider. So we agreed to work on hopefully improving complementation in serving our respective clients. In other words, we hope to find areas of complementation instead of competing, no, sa areas ng BPO service provision. Para we can probably jointly offer our respective services kung saan sila magaling, saan tayo magaling, yun yung itutulak natin sa mga kliyente natin. And yun, so other things, Yusek?
Services, one possible area that was identified as a area for complementation on services, yung engineering services outsourcing, particularly in the auto industry. There are large market opportunities, and though India is leading it, it also has its constraints. So nakikita nila pwede tayong mag-complement dun sa ESOs, engineering services outsourcing.
Mga strength natin dun sa mga clinical process outsourcing, mga nurses, for example. Rather than having nurses by the bedside of the patient, pwede ka outsourcing no? Pinapadala yung mga test results, diagnostic, and then we send back the analysis. Doon tayo magaling, marami rin tayong nursing graduates, and they are also being employed in the Philippines through some CPO providers, no, clinical process outsourcing providers. And that's one strength because of our strength natin sa nursing and healthcare industry. So yun yung mga ina-highlight naman natin and where we're good at. Okay? In terms of what? Investment or trade?
Sa PIJEPA.
Yung PIJEPA. Well, actually, sa industry side, we all know naman they're the only players in the CARS program. No? So, tulak pa rin nila yon, yung on the auto parts and
maganda na yung access natin sa Japan for industrial. It's really the
so yan.
Yun na yung that will happen during the joint committee meeting this on September, yung joint committee meeting 29, September 29.
Sige, okay. Siguro pwede na yun, no? Konti lang naman, ano? So, ano yun na lang? Thank you, everyone. And kumain muna tayo.